Remember the RX-7 that the other Ben owned? And do you remember when he blew up that rear diff? Well, we're here at ASM to make sure that that doesn't happen to my RX-7. And since we're gonna change out the rear diff in this car anyway, why don't we see about doing a little stress test of our own?
Okay, so obviously my diff didn't grenade like Ben's did, and even though my RX-7 makes more power than his did, there's a simple answer for this. I'm still on snow tires. Yeah, literally for 2 years this car has been on Blizzaks. We put these on when we did our 48-state road trip, and we weren't sure if we were gonna hit snow in the northern states, and I just never got the courage to replace these with some proper summer tires. It also helps that the pavement was wet. These tires broke loose pretty easily, and when you're making 400 wheel horsepower on a car that doesn't have a super strong rear diff, it's a good thing to have tires that break loose easily so it doesn't put strain on the drivetrain.
But we're here at ASM now to make it right.
So we got Mazda with a Honda. What are you gonna put in the back?
Ford. What's wrong with that?
I think it's been a really good car. I don't know why you're messing with it. It really has been pretty good. Step one here is we're gonna get this stock RX-7 diff out, and then we're gonna try mocking up our new Explorer diff. And the goal here is to try to get it positioned where we hopefully think it's going to be and get a good drive shaft measurement. That might be one of our holdups here is waiting for a drive shaft. So we want to try to really figure out what we need, get that ordered, because that might be a few days. And meanwhile, while we're waiting for the drive shaft, we can still get everything else done. I think we can do that. I think we can just take it off this hanger, unbolt it, and then we'll just bungee it over. I'm going to take this thing off though. Basically the front diff mount, the PPF, right? Power plant frame.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So this bar is kind of the primary reason that I'm doing this rear end swap. Yes, it's nice to have a diff that can hold more power, but the vibrations that I get from the rear diff is pretty bad, and it's mostly because of this. This is a PPF bar, I think is what it's called, but obviously it connects to the rear diff, and then the front normally goes to the RX-7 transmission, of which I don't have. I have an S2000 transmission. So we had to fabricate a bracket for this to go to instead of onto the transmission. It does have a little rubber isolator in it, but that can only do so much. So anytime I'm driving over 65 miles an hour, I can feel some pretty heavy vibration coming out of the rear diff. I complained about that a lot on the road trip when we went to 48 states, and it's mostly because of this item right here. With this Ford Explorer rear swap change, we no longer need one of these. It is all basically welded into the rear subframe like a normal car, so I can get rid of this, which is further weight savings, but most importantly, no vibration. So this is the stock rear diff. Obviously, it is quite tall, but not very wide. It's pretty skinny. These are generally rated to about 400 horsepower, which is what this car makes. So yeah, this is gonna go on eBay for sale because I'm too cheap. These things are gonna look like little toothpicks once we show you the axles that we're gonna put in this thing.
The the RX-7 rear end out of the car, it's time to put in the Ford Explorer rear diff that we had built yesterday.
Okay, so this is an 8.8 rear differential out of a 2007 to 10 Ford Explorer. We're going to be replacing the RX-7 differential with this. This is comparably a lot larger, holds a lot more power than that one, way more available than the RX-7 stuff, period. You can find this literally in any junkyard. Found this one literally 15 miles from my house. So comparable size-wise with an Evo differential, it's way larger. I mean, it's not even the same base. This is like Mustang stuff compared to import stuff. So if you put 1,000 horsepower through this thing in your car, you're never gonna have to worry about the differential. It's gonna be stout. Today we're gonna glass bead it. We're gonna detail and shot peen the ring gear, put a 373 final drive into the car. The limited slip, we're gonna go for an open, that's what was originally in this thing, to helical style, limited slip into it, Eaton True Track.
This here is the pinion flange of my new diff. This is for the Ford Explorer. It's actually got a lot of holes in it, so maybe it's gonna be easy to make a drive shaft for this, but we'll get to that later. This is the pinion flange for an Evo. Need I say more?
So how was the drive up to Michigan?
Drive up here was not too bad. This is quite a large microphone.
With 70 style, you know?
I have a smaller microphone here.
Mine's bigger.
Yours is bigger. This is what, an Evo?
Evo.
So this is an Evo pinion?
Yes.
And that is?
Ford 8.8 pinion.
Size matters, guys.
So currently right now we're gonna be corner rounding these gears along here. It doesn't really make contact out here, but there's a lot of bending force and we don't want all of that out there. We are able to take a little bit off here because it likes to dig down low. We don't want that really to happen. It can make a real hard dig line, start pitting up there and take the tooth off. Oh, good to go.
Box with a Phillips head screwdriver. Oh yeah. We got it, the Eaton Detroit True Track differential. This is what's gonna make both wheels spin instead of one. And it's actually, honestly, not that bad. And probably kind of small. Let's see what it looks like.
This differential right here, this is still a planetary helical. It's very durable because you got, again, a sun and planets around it, multiple teeth of engagement.
So what's the benefit of a gear style diff versus a clutch style diff?
The benefit of this style here is ease of manufacture. It's a very simple thing because you can buy sun gears and planetary in bar stock length that is already got teeth whittled into it, so the teeth are already hobbed and ground. If the gears are ground, these could be. This right here is a high taper bearing, multiple teeth of engagement. It's not going to want to break one, but if it doesn't have the proper nomenclature call out, it's got also probably multiple teeth of engagement. A sun gear in the center, you've got your planet, you've got your annual.
So from my little pea brain aspect, this diff is stronger and also quieter than a clutch back diff?
Absolutely, absolutely.
It doesn't necessarily grip as well. It's less tunable.
It's less tunable and potentially could have less
have some
spiders you're going to push out against.
You're
the
going to
wall.
have the frictional characteristics
that you
You're about to get attacked.
Yeah, Beanie Beanie. You coming over to say hi? Is your love tank full? Not yet, huh? Not yet.
Cool. All right. Well, let's throw it in. So they have some broken clutches laying around here. These are actually clutch pack, I guess the discs themselves that go inside of differentials. This is what they look like. They're kind of all stacked on top of each other, and they use friction. This was actually welded together, but they use friction to kind of activate the lock between both sides. But in this diff, it's using gears instead of clutch packs, which is obviously stronger than, well, we can see this one that broke. It's also maybe quieter because it doesn't have that actual rubbing going on because it's using gears. So yeah, it's fascinating. The different types of diffs, very different way about going about making sure both of the rear tires are locking.
So these spider gears here are going to be, enmeshed with this planetary gear where the axle goes, and it's also enmeshed with the other side. So when you're actually applying pressure, it will actually try to push these out being helical gear because you have axial and radial loads. And the amount of radial load is pushing it out. Axial load will push it out, pushing it up against the housing, and that's what actually locks it up. It's kind of weird.
Fascinating. Huh.
And they're quiet.
It looks strong. It looks stout.
There's so much engagement happening and everything.
Yeah. what's the optimal friction amount?
Depend from like, you know, I usually go for like 12, 13 inch-pounds on an Evo. This thing probably maybe about 15 at the most.
I actually feel a decent amount of like, I can't really, I guess I can one hand.
It's getting there now, yeah. We're gonna be checking the gear pattern, how it looks with this marking paint. Basically, we'll spin it, see how the gear contact actually is on the tooth, and we'll go from there. The pattern we have here is, it's at least going across the whole entire face of the tooth. It actually looks pretty good on the pinion. It looks a little deep, and if you come over to the coast, it's way out here towards the heel. This is called the toe, it's called the heel. So it is loading up here on the coast side or the deacceleration side. So when you're coasting down, that's where all the load is. It is biased the correct way, meaning the coast side's this way, the drive side's closer to here loading up. When you're under load, it actually goes towards the middle. It's what we want.
Before we bolt the whole diff casing back together, we need to remove some of the factory Ford Explorer mounting points on the rear diff cover. These will interfere with the RX-7 subframe, so we don't need them.
While I'm here, before I go, obviously we don't have any fluids in this thing. What kind of fluid should I run in this? Just like off the shelf, 75, 140?
Yes, that would be a good oil for it. You could do a 75/90, honestly, you being in the street. Something like that would be really good. They're
Thicker fluid
140.
generally means more protection,
Yes.
but also like more drivetrain loss, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And honestly, it's not very much. I just like the more protection, and it's just better protection.
I mean, that's fine. I'm not trying to squeeze any class rules out or anything in some competition, so 75, 140 works, but what about friction modifiers?
Technically in this one, you do not have to run it, but it's not gonna hurt anything. The more slippery, the better. That means it's better protection again for the gears because it's gear on gear contact, technically, with the oil being the film strength between it.
Okay.
So you put a friction modifier in there, you can all of a sudden have a slipperier oil.
Okay. All right, well, that's what we'll do then. I actually just noticed on this cover, it tells you what fluid to run. It says 75, 140. I probably could have just looked at the cover instead of asking him, but. So we're actually doing a lot more than just the rear diff swap while we're here. Obviously, we've got a ton of other parts that we're gonna be putting on while we're doing this, while we're here with Andy. And it's not just drivetrain related. We've got some other stuff going on. So, over the course of the next couple of episodes, we're gonna be doing a lot to this car, and I'm excited. And also a little nervous because we only have like 5 days to do this before I have to head back home.